posters with our girls and boys, and we have our foundation is focused on women, so we would like to talk about women and girls the most this day. And we have 4 wonderful speakers for you, experts from all over the world. We have our first expert, well, is Tina, but she's now it's an Heideveld, I don't know. Martine. Martine Delfos from the Netherlands. She is an autism expert, and she also wrote a book, The Beauty of the Difference, the difference between men and women. And I only got it this morning, so I didn't have a chance to read in it. I have no clue whatsoever, but it's really, I'm really looking forward to read it. After Martine Delfos, Abigail Srier, I hope I pronounce your name right, will speak. She's also an author. She wrote a book, Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. And it's a journalistic report on what's going on with young women and transitioning. I'm halfway. It's really an excellent book because you get insight from all different angles. So she also talked to the influencers who are trans themselves and who are talking a lot on YouTube and ringing the trans bell. And we have then Michelle Moore will speak, also an author of a book. She wrote Inventing Transgender Children and Young People. And this is the second book she wrote about transitioning and about young people and the invention of transgenderism. And I think today our most important guest is Emily, because she is a detransitioner herself, and she will share her personal experience. And so, Emily, a special welcome to you. We're so glad you're willing to share what you've been through and explain to us what happened in your life, why you transed, why you and why you detrans. So I'm going to put only Martine Delfos in the spotlight and have the other speakers in the give the other speakers a bit of breathing space, so not everybody is really looking at you all the time. And after Martine, I will ask one of the questions to Martine. So you can ask in the chat, you can ask your questions, and I will ask the question to Martine. And after everybody spoke, we will have a little more time to ask questions, and then we will be in the breakout rooms. So that's the order of the things for today. And so I would like Martine to start with her expose on the difference on the, she's starting already.
Okay. Welcome everyone. And I'm very happy to be here. And it's a challenge to speak about 2 important subjects at the same time within 10 or 15 minutes. So I do hope I will not rush too much and not be too simple or complicated, but I hope so. About transsexual and gender and autism. Both are areas that I work in and even more. And I try to go on. Yes, the webinar is based on scientific literature, and this is the one in English, The Beauty of the Difference, Why Men and Women Are Different and the Same. I have biological, evolutionary arguments for both the difference and the similarity. And the second one is, of course, about autism, unraveling autism, and a new theory in the field of autism. And then they are also in Dutch. So let me start with a general brain view on transsexual identity. It all goes back to Dick Swaab and his research, worldwide research on the bed nucleus or of the stria terminalis. That is a nucleus in the brain, and that shows which identity you have, you feel. That is this is that bed nucleus, and you can see whether someone is a heterosexual man, an heterosexual woman, a homosexual man, or a transsexual woman in the body of a man. The problem with this, I'll show you the bed nucleus first. The bed nucleus is here, and those are the stria terminalis. Well, the problem is that this can be seen only after death, not before. It is a reaction of brain cells to a substance that is added to the cells, and then you can see this is a man, a heterosexual woman, a homosexual man, and a transsexual woman in the body of a man. So that an identity is there. What does that mean? There are a lot of issues, and you know that, about transsexual gender and transsexuality in general. There are many, certainly young people who want to change their sex or their gender. What do you think? What is it? That's about that everything is different, and men and women are different and the same. But during puberty, you are looking for an answer, who am I? On the waiting list, there are many, for a long time, adoptees. So that was a little bit shocking to discover. And one day when I spoke with the professor of gender issues in gender dysphoria in the Netherlands, Peggy Cohen, I said to her, I think that later on, in some years, you have to count on Chinese adoptee children who want to change their gender. Because it is because they were a girl that they have been given up for adoption. So the most ultimate thing they can do is change their gender, change their sex. Nowadays, the waiting list is filled with people with autism. Why? That's the question. Is that gender dysphoria, or what is the matter? If you look at the DNA, it is a mosaic. Your DNA is half male, half female. So there's always a changing balance during life due to age, gender, culture, and education. So you are in some ways male, some way female, and you can feel the differences in that balance your whole life long. But if you take the facts, there's a morphology. What does the brain look like? And there is an organization of the brain. Well, I'm a model developer and a theory developer. So for me, I have the luxurious situation that all the research in the world about men and women, differences and similarities is useful for my theory. Because they are both. They are the same and different. It is the morphology that makes the same idea. We have the same part. We all have a cortex. We all have the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis. But it is the organization, that means white matter, that makes the difference. And you can change the morphology of the body, but not of the brain, and not the organization of the brain. It's very important to know that. The only thing you can change is a hormonal balance. Autism, research has shown, among others from Simon Baron-Cohen, is the extreme male spectrum. It's at the extreme end of the male spectrum. Girls with autism are leaning to the male side, therefore. What is the problem is when you are trying to know something was there's a real sound problem. I hear kind of music, echo, I cannot speak. It's gone, I think. It's gone. Thank you. So what is at the core of the matter is the self-image. And within the self-image, the self-esteem. So puberty is an unstable period. Until your adulthood, you do not really know who you are. And you do not know your sexual identity, your cultural identity. Who am I? Is the big question. Autism in the world is changing with respect to theory. That is because the theories that were there are now no longer valid. So we have a lack of theory, and the first step for me was 20 years ago to construct a new theory, which is valid. So I give you first my manifesto. What is the problem in the field of autism with the people with autism? And you can easily see that it would hurt your self-esteem. So this was a question that was put before Steve Silverman and before me. And this was my answer to the question, what do you think are the main challenges in the autism community right now? The most challenging for people with autism is the idea that people around them think they understand, which leads to a kind of taking over their life and controlling them. From family to professionals, being able to take over one's life leads to a feeling of superiority, which easily leads to discrimination and fighting for your own opinion against all odds. All this with the best of intentions, leaving the people with autism bewildered by a kind of feeling of inferiority, their self-esteem severely damaged. It causes their potential for growth to be seriously suppressed, a kind of psychological lynching. If you work in the field of autism, you will see it is so hard for people, very often. It is like living in a psychological war zone. An attitude of not understanding with modesty and respect would not only lead to asking the people with autism about their self-knowledge, which would be of decisive importance, but also simply respectful and civilized. So you see, there's not a very stable base for people with autism to develop. Their puberty and their adolescence is therefore often very difficult. So I'm a model developer. I developed a model and a theory about men and women, the differences and the similarities. I discovered the brain networks that made it possible to see why is the organization of the brain more important than the morphology of the brain. So let me show my model about autism. At this moment, the Dutch government has made a very exciting but amazing step to embrace my theory because of the results they see with people with autism, which is very exciting, I can tell you. I was asked to make this for the government of Malta. They asked me, can you show the situation of your theory compared to the theories that have already been developed? Well, there is the Central Koreans, the most famous one, about processing information, fragmenting thinking, and that is supposed to be autism. Then you have the theory of mind. And the focus is on social interaction. So it's called autism because you cannot develop a theory of mind, a theory about your own thoughts and those of others. Then you have the planning and executive function, what is not is mainly a psychological theory, not specifically autism. But all three theories have proven to be not valid. In 1996, Bailey and Rutter and his group discovered that there is no specific area in the brain that is different in people with autism. It's the whole brain that is different. And that connects to my theory. What I say is not a defect, it's not a disorder, but it is another kind of development we are not used to. It starts the other way around. When what we are used to is starting with the focus on social, and then the focus on cognition. And autism is the other way around, starting with the focus on cognition, and then the focus on social. That means that if you compare what we call normal with autism, what we call normal have an accelerated development compared to autism in the field, in the social field. And we would say those with autism are delayed. And we do not really speak about the rest of the development. So it's half the person. But if you look at the whole person and you look at, there's more of course, but these are two important areas. You look on having first to focus on cognition, then it would be an accelerated development compared to what we call normal. And normal would be delayed compared to autism. But this is the only thing we focus on. That's a problem. So in my book, Unraveling Autism, I speak about this and how this became in transition, this theory. If you have, I go back, if you have those differences in development compared to what we are used to, you develop a mental age spectrum within one person. That means a rainbow of ages within one person. This is a visual about a girl 8 years old. So her attachment age is 1 year old. Her development in play is 3 years old. Development in language is 6. In arithmetic is 12. And physics is 15 years. So we want one age. And we do not know how to deal with all those ages. So where they are behind, that's what we say, behind, then they have a disorder. What do you think they will feel when they are looked upon this way? It hurts. It hurts a lot. So now I will give you the characteristics of autism. They are the thinkers. I do hope the word autism will disappear, because it is associated to a lot of characteristics that has nothing to do with autism. And perhaps you will say, how can you say that? Because the concept of autism was developed first by Leo Kanner, who had a lot of different people in his research group. He had children with autism, a lot of children who had nothing to do with what is really autism, but a physical disease or psychological trauma. And that whole gathering of all those problems together was called autism, because of one of the symptoms, not of autism, but one of the symptoms of not feeling good, which you can have when you have autism, you can have that when you are ill, and you can have that when you have trauma. So being withdrawn into yourself is normal when you have a trauma, is normal when you're ill. Still, that was called autism, but that's not what autism is. So one of the things you hear most is that people with autism, when they get the diagnosis, they say, I cannot recognize myself. This is not what I am. This is not what I have. When you see the characteristics from the theory that I developed, the social schema with the MIS1P, then it starts with people with a very strong self-determination. They try to solve everything by themselves. They do not ask for help. They organize help they want to have. They learn only through understanding. They want to grasp the subject. And they do that all by themselves. They look everything up in internet, for instance. But the difficult thing is that when you learn through understanding a subject, it always starts with not understanding. So learning is always a challenge for them, always. A very hard challenge. And they feel misunderstood because they have to, certainly in primary school, they have to learn by heart, and they can't. They do not have the brain to learn by heart. They have the brain to find out by themselves the principle beneath the subject. So yes, they are all highly gifted. Also, the people with autism who have a diagnosis of a mental challenge, they still are highly gifted. And in the Netherlands, they tried to find out what I was saying, I was doing. And they decided, yes, you're right. That is how it is. And now they're doing pilots in institutions for people with mental challenge to find the people with autism who are there imprisoned in an institution with a very developed thinking brain, where they have a lack of knowledge, which you can give them that knowledge, is the daily social regulation. Ask someone with autism, who do you think I am? And they will tell you who you are. But the simple things, they missed it in the start of their life because they were paying attention to totally different things, like the stars, the light and the shadow, but not to the simple social daily things. So this means it's not a defect, it's not a disorder, but a lack of knowledge. These 4 characteristics make that you are confronted with a world that you do not know why they do not understand you, a world that does not understand you, and that leads to what I call the 5th characteristic, which happens very often, that is turn without the S. Turn off feelings. Avoid feelings. Drastically. Not thinking about it, avoiding subjects that are fearful for you, that give you a lot of anxiety. And the last one is escape. You have so much sorrow, so much problems, and you want to escape from those problems. And then you drastically replace the nasty feeling by another one, by enormous obsessions, alcohol, gaming, etc., etc., etc. So then you are in a very difficult situation. They are the thinkers. So I give you a very, very simple, very small example. The boy came into therapy with me when he was 15 and he's 16 now. And I worked for some time with him. And it went well, better and better, but he didn't go to school for 10 years. He tried. And every time when he went to school, he was so afraid. And he had to go home. And then he said, I have a secret, but I dare not tell it to you, because you will say you have to go to school. And I said, I don't think so, but we can try. And he said, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I had to write down my name. And everyone in the classroom did that. And I was the only one who wrote it down with different colors. So I did it wrong. But I tried to do it better by taking the same pen they did. And I said, so you observed everyone and you came to the conclusion, I'm not okay. I'm different. He said, yes. And you came to the conclusion, I'm different in a bad way. He said, yes. I said, that is because you were too young thinking about that and coming to a conclusion, because when I would have seen you in that time, I would have thought that's a creative boy. Yeah. And yes, different, but then good. So it's much too quick, but I go to my end slide. Yeah, I do hope I give you something. And my end slide is, we do not need to understand everything. If we only understand that we do not understand, then we will treat the other with more respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martine.
You're welcome.
I have had a few questions. There was talk in the chat about the male brain and discussion about if that's a real thing or not. But there was one question that interested me the most, and that was it seems that the trans identification is mostly for boys and girls with mild autism. Do you have any idea why that is?
There is no mild autism. There is only that we say it is mild autism. It's autism. That's my perspective, and I have a lot of, but there's a lot, I cannot explain all that, a lot of research that supports that. And mild, that would mean that they are social and that they speak, yeah? Mm-hmm. But that means also that they're very, if we say mild, we are speaking about children who are not confronted with the world, Caroline, and that means that they have been hurt by doing wrong, not what the people expect, and not being understood, that they develop a very bad feeling about themselves. Their self-esteem is damaged much more, or more in a visible way for themselves, more in a clear way, than children who have severe autism, which does not exist, I can tell you.
Okay. Thank you very much.